Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Clocked In with the Press, hosted at Altman Studios in Brentwood, California. We are here to spread some news, spill some tea, and make sure that you, our listeners, are both informed and entertained. Not everything stated in this podcast is supported by or reflects the beliefs of the press, so if you disagree with me or possibly agree with something said, let me know on Twitter or Instagram at PressClockedIn or on our Facebook at thepress.net. I'm your host, Caitlin Gleason, clocking in. So for the story of the day, as we enter into the school year, along with it comes the start of high school sports such as football, volleyball, swimming, and more. On top of regular challenges of scheduling, time management, and increased practices for students, they now are faced with the added obstacle of participating in sports during a pandemic. However, before we get too deep into the topic of the day, let's review the top stories of the week. The Contra Costa County Sheriff's Office announced Monday, August 30th, that 3 suspects have been arrested and charged in connection with the death of a man following a shooting on Brentwood Boulevard in unincorporated sections of the city last week. Oakley resident Daniel Marmino, 49 years old, and 19-year-old Nathan Rapone Lindsay of Yuba City and 43-year-old Dennis Lindsay, whose current residence was not disclosed, have been charged in the death of Justin Silva on August 24th. Marmino is charged with murder, while Lindsay is charged with murder and burglary, and Rapone Lindsay is facing charges for murder and dissuading a witness. Silva was one of 3 shooting victims and the only person to die in the incident on the afternoon of August 24th. The sheriff's office has not released an update on the condition of the 2 victims that survived the incident. Next, a 16-year-old student at Antioch High School was arrested following an altercation with school staff, the Antioch Police Department announced in a press release dated August 30th. The incident took place on school grounds on August 27th, shortly at roughly 11:20 a.m. According to Lieutenant Desmond Bittner in a press release, Antioch police officers arrived within several minutes and located 2 security guards holding a student down on the ground in the quad area of the school. Several Antioch police officers assisted the security guards in placing the student in handcuffs. The student was ultimately placed under arrest and transported to the Antioch Police Department for assaulting a school employee, fighting on a school campus, and resisting or delaying an arrest. Next up, Operation Green was created in April 2021 by student Alexi Lindman. Starting off with 18 participants, Operation Green was branched out into collaboration with various organizations. Volunteers from Sustainable Leaders in Action, or SLIA, the youth branch of the nonprofit Sustainable Contra Costa, organize and run the event. Operation Green, basically Mission Impossible, was a 3-week interactive program in July for 8 to 10-year-olds. 6 in-person or Zoom spy-themed missions taught kids about environmental topics in fun and engaging ways. Waste Watchers, Secret Ingredient, Eager Energizers, Together is Better, Agents on the Move, and Aqua Avengers. Lindman, Sarah Khan, who is the SLIA's public relations intern, and Mia Jiang and Lizel and Katahan helped manage the team leads, advertise the project, delegate tasks, and communicate with Sustainable Contra Costa advisors. Next year, an Operation Green intern will run the project. This organization has provided younger generations an opportunity to get involved in making Contra Costa County greener. Lastly, the Brentwood Union School District Board faced a delay during its monthly school board meeting on August 18th when a group of community members interrupted proceedings to express their frustrations with the district's policy regarding face coverings for students. A discussion item titled Mask Guidance was placed on the agenda for the meeting based on community suggestion. After a brief deliberation, the board opted to maintain the status quo and its mask mandate, causing some in attendance to shout insults, expletives, and threats to vote the board out in its entirety. The uproar resulted in the board choosing to briefly recess the meeting before it continued uninterrupted. So those were the weekly top stories, and let's get back to the main story of the day. Here to discuss it with me further is Heritage High School Athletic Director Nate Smith. Hi, Nate.
Hey, Caitlin. Thanks for having me on today.
Of course, thank you for coming out. And so how long have you been working at Heritage High School as the athletic director?
So this is my 4th year as the athletic director at Heritage, my 8th year teaching at the school. Really fortunate as athletic director to kind of follow in the footsteps of Pat Cruikshank, who was the athletic director there from the time the school opened, and he's now the North Coast Section Commissioner. So it's given me not only, a great mentor in the position since I took over from him in the 2018-19 school year, but also a direct line to the section office whenever I need it,
Which
is very valuable at times, when we're looking for a little, insight as to what decisions will be coming down the pipeline.
Right.
So that's been great. Like I said, my 8th year teaching at the school as well. And previous to that, I was at Liberty High for 8 years.
Really?
And I've actually been at all 3 schools in the district. So I've gotten to see a little bit of how every school works, our district from a number of levels. And as athletic director, my 3rd year was not a regular year. Last year being that we didn't have anything in the first semester, and then we crammed 22 varsity sports into the second semester, but hoping that year 4 resembles more year 1 in terms of a little bit of normalcy.
Right. Okay. So it's kind of that like return back that you kind of are all looking forward to.
Absolutely. I mean, the last 2 years, with the shutdown 2 springs ago, and then last year we had 15 varsity sports in one season at the end of the school year, and it was a bit of a whirlwind. We were super happy to see our kids and our families getting to experience high school sports again, or at least experience participation. And we'll talk a little bit more about the difference of that, as we go on today, but at least that to experience that participation again. And this year we're hoping to once again get back at some point to what the high school sports experience is.
Right. Okay. And so what are some of your main duties as the athletic director at Heritage?
Well, you talked a little bit about it earlier when you just mentioned scheduling, time management, all of that. And, you're in charge of all the facilities. You're in charge of scheduling, not only contests, but also all of the officials, all of the budgeting, working with the local community and, making sure all of your student athletes are cleared for competition from a liability standpoint, making sure they're medically cleared, academically cleared. When you have new students, there's a process with that as well. So, and really that list just kind of expands as the year goes on.
Right.
And the biggest thing though, is you're in charge of building the relationships from the top down in the athletic department.
Oh, okay.
You're in charge of building those relationships with those coaches and making sure that every program that is run at your school falls within the same mission, building the same type of culture to where your student athletes are on the same page, no matter what sport they're playing, and they have the same expectations when they go out for a sport at your school. They know what to expect as a student athlete.
Okay, so it's a lot of like operations and then a lot of like interpersonal management when it comes to like the students and the teachers and the coaches.
Should probably have you write a little bit of my job description right there. I like that. Operations and then the interpersonal management. Yeah, absolutely. Operations is a big part. Finance is a big part, but relationships sits above that because otherwise they don't really want to hear what you have to say about anything else.
Right. And so I guess with interpersonal relations, a lot of those were strained when everybody had to work from home and everything. And so at the moment, are you working mostly in the office or is much of your job still work from home?
So we are full in-person school, which means I'm full
Right.
in-person in the office.
Okay.
And I was there even when we were in remote distance learning. I taught my classes on Zoom from my office.
Got it. Okay.
I did my work from the office because my job also requires having a relationship with all the other offices on campus, with our student store, with our secretaries, with each building, and also keeping an eye on facilities at all times. And our teams were cleared to work out and practice, back at the start of last school year in their cohorts. It didn't look like practice. It was just getting them out of the house and working out. But that also meant I had to make sure our facilities, were in shape at that time, take a look at what was going on with those workouts, make sure they were following protocols. So I've been in the office since the start of last school year. And now every athletic director also works from home. We'll make that clear. No matter, we'll put in a full day in the office, but I don't know a single athletic director who leaves all their work in the office and doesn't work from home.
Right. There's always something left over.
That's
that
the
you gotta
demands
do.
of the job. That's the expectation. So, but yes, to answer that, I'm fully in the office and hopefully I'm not taking too much home at night yet.
Hopefully not. And so you mentioned it earlier how you were teaching and coaching a little bit before you were athletic director, and then you also did so at other schools as well. So what were the sports that you either currently coach or did coach in the past?
So that's kind of one of the things is I've had a little bit of a unique coaching journey, which I didn't start off that way. When I started coaching, I was a football track guy, and that was that. And that was all. That's when I went from the high school level to the college level, coaching football and track, and then along the way, I had a school throw a monkey wrench at me and told me as part of my job description I had to be a head women's tennis coach at the same time. They slipped that one in after I had agreed to accept the job. And so then I started coaching tennis, and At Heritage, I've also coached cross country. Before that, when I was at Liberty, I was the head football coach for 6 years. When I stepped down from doing that, they got me to coach softball for a few years and water polo for a year. And I've been a head track coach at both the high school and college level.
Okay.
Head track coach at Freedom High and at a couple different colleges back east.
Okay, so you're kind of just the jack of all trades with coaching.
I joke around with my volleyball staff had a conflict one weekend a couple years ago, when they had the tournament, and our head coach asked me, she goes, well, do you have any recommendations? I said, well, I guess I can show up and coach the team for you. Sort of joking around, and she took me up on it. And so I like to joke around with her because we went undefeated in the games that I coached there. So I said, all right, now I get to add volleyball to my list that I've done. But it's fun. It gives me a unique perspective, I think, having actually been hands-on with so many sports, at the high school or college level. And so when I go out there as athletic director and I'm supporting our student athletes, I think I have, pretty good knowledge of what the demands of their sport are. And I hope that helps me relate just a little bit better, having put myself in the shoes of all these different sports.
Yeah, I think that's like having that much experience definitely is something that would help with the position. And so kind of on the topic of all those different sports, what are the main sports that are currently starting up for the fall and winter seasons?
Well, unlike last year, we're back to a normal schedule as defined by the California Interscholastic Federation and the North Coast section.
So no 22 sports in one season.
No, not at all. And so we're back to 8 varsity sports happening in the fall.
Okay.
So we have football, we have boys and girls cross country, boys and girls water polo, and then we have a trio of girls only sports, which is girls golf, girls tennis, and girls volleyball.
Okay.
So those are our 8 fall sports. Our rally squad and dance teams are working out, and they have their own competition seasons that happen in the winter. But so we go from there. We have those 8. We have 5 defined winter sports in the NCS that we do: boys and girls basketball, boys and girls soccer, and wrestling. Our traditional competitive cheer team and our dance teams also compete during the winter. And then we have 10 official spring sports to finish out the season.
Okay, so all these high school varsities now are kind of able to get back into the motions that they weren't quite sure about like last year.
Correct. And we're also excited because we also know going forward we're also going to have our 3 unified sports seasons.
Oh, okay.
So we have unified soccer now getting ready for the fall, and we'll have 4 games for unified soccer again in the fall, which is a great thing to offer some of our other students and in that department. And it's just great. We're a Special Olympics champion school. And so to bring that back has been, really a blessing to bring that back for those student athletes as well.
Okay. And so along with that, as we're resuming back to the normal schedule, has participation in these sports, increased or stagnated or remained the same or decreased in light of existing COVID-19 restrictions and like the lifting and then the re-adding on and all that?
Well, as expected last school year, everybody's numbers dropped. But how we view that, really, we have to look at the lens of one, nobody fielded freshman sports.
Right.
So when we did that because, having 15 sports going on at once, we didn't have the facilities, the officials, the coaches, the athletes. There just wasn't the ability for us to field all 3 levels, and do so adequately. So we didn't have freshman sports. So our numbers of 9th graders who were on teams because they had to be on junior varsity teams was significantly lower last school year than we see in a normal year. In a normal year, we're somewhere between 12 and 1,300 student athletes at Heritage.
Wow.
Last year, we were just below 800.
Oh, wow.
So, which, considering everything, we felt pretty good about. Based on the early returns this fall, the number of athletes that I've cleared for fall sports, and our early roster numbers for those 8, it appears to me like participation is either on par with where we were at 2 and 3 years ago, or potentially going to surge above that.
Okay, and it, because I think a lot of kids who maybe weren't planning on doing sports were like, okay, I've been in my own bedroom for 2.5 years. Not 2.5, a year and a half. It felt like 2.5, but it's not that long. And so now, do you think that potentially being able to return now, a lot of people are like, I want to get out more. I want to be more active. I don't want to have to just sit in my room this whole time since I just did that for a really long time.
We are seeing a little bit of that, and there are some new names coming across my desk that I haven't seen it in the last 2-3 years. And I'm going, oh, you're a junior, you're a senior. And I've never seen their name on a roster. So we are seeing a little bit of that, especially in some of our sports that are high participation sports where we don't cut.
Right.
We're seeing more kids coming out for cross country this year. We have slightly more girls out for golf. Our football numbers are back up again, at all three levels. And so we're looking at going, okay, we have more people coming out for athletics. And even in our sports where we do cut athletes, the returns have been tremendous. I mean, we've probably had to cut close to 50 girls from our volleyball program who tried out. And we just don't have the spots altogether. So that shows you the numbers of people who want to come out and participate. And so, when that happens, we then try to funnel them back into sports where they can participate. And so I'm interested to see the way the rosters get finalized in the next week here. But I think they're going to be obviously bigger than last season. I think they might across the board be larger than 2 and 3 years ago as well. And like I said, it seems like there's an urge for people to get out there and participate.
Okay. And so with, participation either becoming more regular or increasing, and with, the schedules all getting back to normal in terms of just starting and things like that, will the frequency of meetings and practices for these athletes also be returning back to normal, or is that kind of going to be looking different?
We are fully back to normal.
Okay.
In that regard. We are back to a normal student-athlete schedule, which means time management is a critical skill. Nutrition management is critical.
Oh, yes.
Just taking care of one's body and mind. And those are things that our coaches, try to teach as well, because there are large demands. Now we're back in school till 3:00 and then being a student athlete. Last year, that wasn't the case. On distance learning, that school day was over around 12:45, 1:00.
Right.
And then they had office hours. So practices actually started earlier. Some sports didn't practice every day because last year, one of the unique things we had in the spring was that high school and club sports were allowed to exist at the same time. So our high school coaches were cognizant that if they were competing during club season, we might not practice every day, knowing that our student athletes were going out to clubs as well. This year, that's not the case. All the regular rules and regulations are back in place. All of our practice limits and practice times are back in place. And we expect our student athletes to once again juggle a full school schedule plus a full athletic schedule. It's a big commitment. We teach that from the beginning. And it's something that, obviously requires that all-in, buy into that culture of success with your athletic department. And so far, we're seeing that in a very positive way.
Okay. And so are there currently any athletic programs, or specific programs, that are having a harder time adjusting or potentially sustaining themselves in terms of funding or attendance or participation or anything like that, like post nothing happening?
Yes, you're speaking for Heritage High School.
Yes.
We're not seeing many of those issues.
Okay.
Now, if you want to talk about who was really hit with funding, those were your general athletic department budgets across the board.
Right.
Because your general athletic department budgets rely on gate revenue. They rely on having full attendance. And last year, what we saw was our league gave free admission to those 2 parents for every student athlete. And that was it. Right. That was all who was allowed to come, were the parents or guardians of the student athletes. And we let them in for free. So we had 0 gate revenue for an entire school year. In the meantime, because we ended up having every sport happen, we still incurred almost all of our normal costs.
Okay.
So we still incurred all of our normal officials costs. We still incurred all of our normal management game personnel costs. Now, in our school district, our district has been tremendous in moving forward this year in recognizing that we had those big revenue losses and working with us to offset that to make sure that our budgets are sustainable moving forward. So in our school district, no, we haven't really been hit by that. Now, I can't say the same for other districts outside of ours, including participation. I know that, there's a number of teams where we've tried to schedule and they might not have all the lower levels that we have. So there's been a bit of a juggling act there. Freshman football is a great example.
Right.
In our school district, all 3 of our teams have freshman football. Our schedule for our freshman football team, only 4 of the schools that we're playing are schools that our JV and varsity are playing. 5 of the schools that our JV and varsity are playing, or 6 of them, 6 of the schools that our JV and varsity are playing don't have freshman teams.
Oh, like the freshman teams got cut because they had freshman teams previously?
They did, and they don't have them anymore. They don't have the numbers. So our freshman team we've had to go out and scramble to find different opponents who do have freshman teams and are also looking for freshman-only games. So that's been one sport where I've seen it. We're seeing it a little bit in volleyball as well, where people don't necessarily have the numbers that we have here in our school district.
Got it.
So looking outside, we've had to do some creative scheduling to have opportunities for our lower level student athletes.
Okay.
So like I said, outside of our school district, I would say that participation has been hurt. We're not sure if that's going to return to normal or not.
Okay. So I guess kind of on that note, like because you mentioned how previously only the 2 guardians were allowed to go, and we're kind of figuring out all of those scheduling things with people. So for spectator heavy sports, like football, for example, will spectators now be allowed to attend those home or away games to support the local teams? Or what is that kind of going to look like for like the residents of Brentwood who want to go watch Heritage football?
As of now, if you want to come to a high school football game, the only requirement is that you'll have to buy a ticket.
Okay.
Now, as of now, meaning at this point, we are waiting, and our school district is anticipating, and I talked to, our North Coast section office and even our state office. They're all anticipating in the next, week or so that they get updated youth sports guidance from the California Department of Public Health and from the county health offices as they pertain to high school sports that are starting up now. We have no idea when that will be, no idea what that will look like. Every time last year we anticipated getting that guidance, it seemed like it got delayed.
Okay.
So as of right now, there are no restrictions on especially outdoor. We're not going to surpass the numbers that are considered mega events. We don't put over 10,000 people, into a football stadium or over 5,000. We're not exceeding those numbers. So up to that point, we're, unrestricted attendance. Now, if they're going into an indoor event like a volleyball match, right now we haven't been given any attendance restrictions other than all attendees must be masked because that has to comply with indoor guidance.
Right.
So outside of that, now, would it surprise me if we got guidance that told us otherwise? Not at all. Nothing surprises me in the last year and a half.
You've really learned to just take it by stride at this point.
The term we keep using is it's a fluid situation.
Right.
So when we give answers, it's at this point, as of now, and nothing's concrete, nothing's set in stone. And I think, to speak to our community, they've gotten used to that as well. They really have. And our parents have gotten used to things changing. Our students have gotten used to things changing. And I think they've really learned how to take that in stride and learn that there are those things we have control over and there are those things we don't.
Right.
And this question right here, we really don't have control over that. We're going to go with the guidance that we're given.
Okay. And so, with all of that in mind, how can local residents, aside from attendance, possibly like if that, for some reason gets limited. So how can local residents help support and be involved in hometown sports as we are moving forward into the fall and winter seasons?
If you have a school you really love to support, if you love being out at games, all of us have our schedules on our websites. All of us athletic directors have email addresses you can reach out to. And my thing would be to start following your teams, find out when those games are, and reach out to those programs. If it's something where you want to support them by being there, look on our websites for all of our schedules. We put out posters and we put out all of our we preview all of our games on all of our social media channels. And we try to make sure everybody knows when it's going on. If you're not comfortable coming to a game, but you want to support otherwise, contact the athletic director or head coach. We do have a lot of needs right now as we get back to full participation, paying for full tournament entry fees again and, covering all those costs. And from my standpoint, I'm also looking for as many local businesses as possible to partner up with where they're sponsors of Heritage Athletics. And at the same time, we're trying to then promote their business, trying to work hand in hand because they need as much help getting their feet back on the ground as we do. So, if you want to come in person, that's great. We encourage you to come, follow all regulations. If you can't do that, but you want to get involved in other ways, there are so many ways that we will get you involved with athletic teams and athletic departments and so many different ways you can show your support. Just reach out to the athletic director, head coach, and all of our contact info is right there.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for coming in today.
All right. Thank you, Caitlin, for having me.
That's it for today's episode of Clocked In with the Press. Are you excited for the startup of high school sports? What sports do you or have you previously played? And how do you think schools can handle the pandemic while still preserving the high school athletic experience? Let us know what you think on Twitter or Instagram at PressClockedIn or on our Facebook at thepress.net. You can also stay updated on the most recent news in East Contra Costa County through our website at www.thepress.net. There are a million people out there with a million stories, and I intend to cover them one episode at a time. This is your host, Caitlin Gleason, clocking out.